Are you feeling stressed out? Like you don't know what to do? Like you're in an overwhelming cave of madness and you kind of want to drink, but you know you shouldn't? Well, today what we're going to do is talk about how to deal with stress, whether you're an alcoholic or not an alcoholic, and what stress does to your body and how it affects your mind and how it stops you from being able to get out of the things that actually made you stressful in the first place. Right? It's kind of like stress begets stress, which produces inaction, which produces more stress, which means Marcus gets kind of crazy. And this week has been no stranger to stress. This has actually been one of the most stressful weeks since I've been sober for over 5.5 years now, and it's been a pretty bad one. Now, in the back of my mind, I know that drinking is an option to get rid of stress, but it's not always the best option, and there are better ways to deal with stress, and I've found out that a lot of times just writing it out can help as well. So welcome to the show. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, click the bell, and put your comments below, and make sure you give us a thumbs up. That way other people can see this and get less stressed as well. Now, before we get started, as always, Terry and I are not doctors or trained physicians or trained addiction counselors. We're just two guys who figured out how to get sober, and we've kind of put together some sobriety and learned to live a better life where we don't have to be stuck in the quagmire of addiction and the quagmire of what our old thoughts were all about. So, Terry, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, a little bit stressed, but
All right.
I have some good tools to work with it and moving forward with that.
All right, cool. Tell us about that. What's it like? So back when I used to drink and I got stressed, I would drink, which would temporarily ease the stress. Like I was like, I'd be stressed out about like a bill or a business or something. And then I'd drink it. I'd be like, man, I got this shit handled. We're good. Then I'd wake up the next day saying, well, I felt better, but nothing got better. So what was it like for you when you used to drink over stress versus now, what do you do with stress?
And you know what you said when you were drinking about, things would feel better, but it wouldn't get better. That was the same with me. Is I drink my stress away, and it wouldn't get better. All it would really do with the stress is just push it down the road, and it would come back even more, because whatever I needed to take care of or that was stressing me out was still there, and it needed to be dealt with even sooner because I'd waited whatever amount of time. And then on top of that was the stress of alcohol was ruling my life. I needed to make sure I had it all the time. I needed to try to make sure nobody knew I was an alcoholic because they'd make me quit, things like that. And there was the marriage problems, the legal problems, the home problems, and it was horrible. The stress was terrible. Nowadays, my stress is a little different. There's negative things happen in life, and like by the way, congratulations, Ty, on your 1 year and 16 days sobriety, and everybody else, good job on your sobriety. And I'm sure Ty, with having over a year, he says he doesn't really get too stressed, but he's probably had some stressful situations, just like me after 5.5 years of sobriety. Lots of stressful situations have happened. Right now there's kind of a lot because I'm moving out of state soon. I'm trying to get my house ready. I'm trying to deal with the house up there and an apartment in the meantime while I'm getting the house. There's so many different factors involved. I have to work a lot because I have to show the income, and I have to get a job. There's all these different things. My wife has to do this stuff. We have to deal with a 13-year-old dog during the move, a cat that's never been out of the house, and all this stuff. Then getting rid of all these things I've had for 45 years, and deciding what I want to take and what I don't. I can just go on and on about those stress things. But one thing that I have to remember is if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't be able to get to do these things. I wouldn't be able to get to move. I'd be just stuck here, sitting there with a bottle of vodka, watching terrible TV. That's what I'd be doing. I get to do so much. The opportunities are amazing. I get to move closer to my dad, who's in the later stages of his life. I mean, it's incredible what sobriety can do. And with the way I'm managing this stress is I just take it, like they say in AA, one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. I try to make the right decisions. I try to plan everything out to a T, but then at the same time, I try to be ready for different results than what I'm expecting and not panic over them.
Yeah.
Sometimes if there's something that's super stressful that comes up, I try to take a step back, pause. We talk about that 15 minutes if you're having a craving, to stop. I do that through life. I take that 15 minutes and pause. Maybe I have to take a full day and pause and think about what the right answer to this situation that comes up is. And that's kind of a real good way that I've found that helps me.
Absolutely, and I found that most of the time there's two things that are in play when we get really stressed out, because usually what we have to look at is the fact that stress is social or economic. It's usually about stuff that's going on in your environment, social, like maybe marriage problems, friend problems, family problems. This category is a big one. And then the other one is usually like economic or status, where we tend to look at both things when we get stressed out. It tends to shrink our brain down so that we're only looking at the worst case scenario. And Terry brings up an interesting point, because back when I was trying to get sober, we were actually looking to move from Northern California down to Florida, which that's a big move. Like, we did the drive, and that's a huge move. And when you think about it, for someone who's never lived off of the West Coast, right? I lived in Oregon and in California all my life. That's where I grew up. That's where I lived. And I never really went that far. And so when you think about that, your mind tends to go to the worst case scenario. And you're like, okay, well, I literally, because we actually, when we were moving, I got so tired of trying to move to Florida, because I tried 3 times when I was drinking and it just didn't happen. One of the houses I actually bought, and we lost our entire deposit and everything because I was drinking and I couldn't follow through with it, and I ended up in rehab. So when we started, after I got sober, about a year and a half after I got sober, or 2 years I think it was, we decided to try moving to Florida again. And we were looking at houses and everyone was turning us down, and I think it was because our realtor was just like, hey, I'm tired of you guys because you tried to move so many times and I'm not even going to try. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. And I called the realtor guy that was on this house here, and I'm like, dude, we're going to buy the house. You could be the realtor for them, the realtor for us. I don't care. I just want the house. And he's like, well, when do you want to come see it? And I'm like, I don't. I saw it online. I'm going to buy the house, right? And he's like, okay, cool. Let's make it happen. And so we made everything happen. And I remember after we bought the house, sent the deposit in, we paid the down, and we had the papers because we actually owned the house about a month and a half before we moved here. And I remember thinking in my brain, I'm going to drive to Florida and there's not going to be a house. I haven't seen it. I don't know. And my mind went to the worst case scenario. And I noticed that with stress, this tends to happen. You look at spouse things and you're like, well, we got in an argument. We're going to get divorced. She's going to take half my money. This is what's going to happen. And I'm going to be out on the street and I'm going to be a loser. And this is what our mind does, is it makes these stressful things very big, so we can't really focus on what's at hand. And what sobriety teaches us is, how do you deal with what's at hand? Because the way to eat an elephant, I don't think we should eat elephants. I like elephants, they're cool. But this is the analogy. The way to eat an elephant, right? You look at it and you're like, how am I going to eat this big ass elephant? Well, you start one bite at a time. Excuse me. And you look at it and you're like, okay, I'm going to start one bite at a time, and then pretty soon I'll be done with it. And when you look at your life, you look at things and you start with the Serenity Prayer. And I know the Serenity Prayer has a lot of connotations with sobriety and stuff like that, which is cool. But actually the roots of the Serenity Prayer come from Stoic philosophy. And Stoics were known as people who didn't get frazzled like everyone else, right? Something would happen in their life and they're like, I don't know, maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad, who knows? And they got this bad rap for being non-emotional, but they actually did have a lot of emotions. And the Serenity Prayer says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. So if I'm stressed out, what is it about this situation that I cannot change, right? So right this week I was stressed out about IRS stuff, right? When you have your own business and you drink, IRS stuff tends to pile up, right? And so I was like, okay, how do I deal with this, right? And I'm like, well, okay, what can I control? Well, I can't really control what I can't do. So if there's an amount I can't pay, they can't get blood from a stone. So what do I do instead? I call them up and I say, hey, how are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do? Here's what I can do. Here's what I can't do. And you look at it, spouse problems. You look at what's going on in your marriage. You're like, okay, what can I change? Well, maybe I could be nicer. Maybe I could get out of my own head. Maybe I could look at it differently. Maybe I could look at my spouse's point of view and see if maybe there's something to that. And then we move forward. If you're stressed about money issues, what can I do right now? Okay? Or what can I not do? And what does it really mean anyway? Right? So instead of driving a Bentley, you drive a Mazda. Big deal. They both get you to the same place. But what happens is our society tells us that we need these certain things or we're not going to be this type of person. And we get stressed over a fabricated idea of what other people think your life should look like. And I think that's very important because this fabricated idea, I didn't make it up. You didn't make it up. It's just what life is about, and that's what people tell us that is important. And as Terry and I have found out throughout life, what's really important? Sanity, serenity, good friends to have around, someone I could talk to. Like I know I could always write Terry and be like, hey dude, I'm stressed out. And he'll give me some good advice. And likewise, he could do the same. And those things are what's important, not how much your car costs, how much your house costs, or how bitchin' you look to other people, right? And we look at it, and without serenity, without sobriety, we have nothing. And you see this in cultures. I am in a self-employed business that can be very high stressful. Now, it's not as stressful as some of the people on Wall Street that literally lose everything and then gain it back the next day. I don't know if I could do that. But we're in an instance where it's like, hey, you know what? Each week you got to make payroll. Like there's people who count on me and they got to get their check. I got to pay my employees before I pay myself. And this issue and that issue. But we look at it in stride, and what sobriety has taught me is that life goes on. And it's going to be okay. And you have 4 seasons for a reason. In the winter, it rains. In the summer, the sun's out. Unless you move to Seattle like Terry, then it rains a lot, right? It actually rains more here in Florida, which is interesting. But, what happens after summer? You get fall. What happens after fall? You get winter. What happens after winter? You get spring. And what you learn is to stop riding the peaks and valleys. Because what we're doing is we're like in a car and we go up a hill. Like if you've ever lived in California, and Terry, you will know what I mean. In California, when you get on the freeway and you come to a hill, everyone in their car thinks that the end of the world is over that hill. And so they stop. And you're like, why is everyone stopping? That you just go over the hill. We've gone over it every day for the last 30 years. We're going to be okay, right? And you'll know the one in Vallejo. When you're going to the city, you go over the one in Vallejo, and everyone just stops when you get on the hill. And there's no traffic other than the fact that they're stopping. And what happens is in life, you're doing the same thing. You're on the highway of life, and you're like, oh, here comes something good. Here comes something bad. Oh, shit, what are we going to do? And you're stopping, and you're on the brake, and everyone in the car's heads are going back and forth. Instead of just driving and saying, you know what, we're going to be all right. Sometimes it slows down. Sometimes there's a hill. But what we know for a fact, I know I've taught myself for 40 years now, things pan out. I thought when I was drinking that the stress was going to kill me, that if I didn't have enough money in the bank, people were literally going to come and like rough me up or something. None of that ever happened. Nothing ever happened. I realized that, sometimes you have peaks, sometimes you have valleys, but over the course of everything, we're going to be okay. And you're going to be all right. You just roll with it, So that's my 2 cents on the topic there.
That's right. We get this fear, false evidence appearing real. And that's what happens. That's what stresses me out is I think about all these things that might happen. And rarely they come true. And, usually everything works out okay. Libby had mentioned a little bit ago I deal with type 1 diabetes 24/7, 365. That is stressful. Been doing it for 43 years. Absolutely. Medical issues, huge stress. Or maybe somebody has a legal issue that's watching. That's huge stress. And I have a friend now. Now, I'm not saying that this friend's exactly the same, but he has type 1 diabetes. He's been sober for 25 years, and he does good. He does well. He definitely has the stress of having to deal with it every day. Now, sobriety has to be his top priority, and at the same time, dealing with his diabetes has to be a top priority. It's not like one's over the other. I mean, obviously, if he's not sober, his diabetes is going to get out of control. But this is what he does, and he just takes that one bite at a time, a little bit without too much sugar, of course. But that's what he does, and he's he has a pretty good life, and at least from what I see when I talk to him. Of course, we don't know what's really going on, but he does okay. And maybe somebody has a legal issue. I've worked with a bunch of people that have legal issues that they have to take care of things, or like maybe they have an ankle bracelet, or they got jail time coming even, and that is super stressful, especially if you got jail time coming. I just that's so horrible, but they just take it same thing, one day at a time. They make sure they're staying sober. That's the most important thing. And then the next thing is taking care of every obligation that they have to deal with, just one thing at a time. And that breaking it down like that for me just seems to work the best. I mean, and here I was talking about my stress of moving, and I mean, yeah, it's stressful, sure, but it's nothing compared to the maybe having a big health issue or a legal issue. I've had to deal with those things before, and they're horrible. And that's one thing that helps me a lot, is looking at things in perspective, and being I say it all the time, being grateful that I have these particular stresses in my life right now, because it's really not that big a deal if I really break it down. Yeah, I got a contractor working outside of my house today. I got one coming on Saturday I have to empty my house for. Okay, I just got to take things. Okay, here's the time I have to deal with emptying my house, and I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And if I have to stay up all night to do it, oh well, I'll get sleep on a different day. It's just what I'll do.
Yeah.
But being sober, I can do that. I've done a lot of work. I did work in this house when I was drinking, and had a contractor in here adding on a corner to the house. Man, I didn't get any of the crap done I was supposed to. It did turn out okay, but it could have turned out a lot better than I had anticipated. So yeah.
Yeah, and we look at what is moving really. Like, moving is one of the there's several main stressors in people's life: death of a loved one, moving, and financial stress, and health stress. And those are the main big ones. And we look at it, and it's like health stress. What can I control? What can't I control? Well, if I have a sugar issue, I try to watch my sugar. Obviously, not drinking is going to help that a lot, because a lot of blood sugar issues are from drinking. But again, check with your doctor, because I don't know what everyone's going through. I just know that alcohol affected my blood sugar. So we look at that. What can I do? What can I do? Moving, right? It's like, okay, well, I live here in California. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to live here in Florida. And you wake up and you're like, it's really not all that different, except it takes a long time to get back where I used to live. But other than that, I wake up in a house with 4 walls and a bed, and that's pretty much it, right? And a lot of people look at this and they cling to things that make them feel or look a certain way. I remember when I got sober, when I bought that house and I put a down payment on the Florida house, lost that house, ended up in rehab, sold my big house in California that I loved, drunk. Like, I remember the guy was like 6'10", and the reason I remember is because I'm 5'1", and that's kind of a drastic difference. I was like, yes, sir, you could buy my house even though your hand could like palm my head. Nice guy though, great guy. And I sold my house drunk, and then I remember in rehab, I was like, I just sold my house and I don't have anywhere to live. And I literally, like, we had days, and luckily my wife's a trooper and she found us a place to live within days. And it was a blow to my pride. Went from a 3,200 square foot big house in California. In California, that's a big house. Everywhere else, it's kind of small, but in California, that's a big one. And that was my identity. I was like, I have this house, I have my cars, I have my wealth. This is Marcus. And then I end up in rehab, and I get out of rehab, and she drives me to this rental that we get, which is like 1,200 square feet, no yard, no nothing, and I don't own it. And I'm like, wow, okay. But I learned, okay, this is just where I live now. This is okay. It's going to be all right. I'm not dead. If I kept drinking, I would have been dead. I was almost dead. And we're going to be okay. And then you learn that things just change and you roll with them. And time shows you that you're going to be okay, right? We've all dealt with things. However old you are, you've made it to this age. I've made it to 40 and I've lived like a maniac, right? And I'm like, I don't know how I did it, but I'm all right. You know, it's going to be okay. And you take things in stride. And throughout sobriety, we've had terrible things happen in our family. Actually, more deaths in our family in sobriety than I ever had in my entire life, right? Like close people. One got shot. And I'm like, how do you deal with that? Like, it's not like, oh, he was old. And it was like, no, dude was murdered. Another one was unexpected. 60-year-old uncle had a heart attack. You know, and these things can cause stress. But what I try to realize is, one, we can't really control it. And two, there are parts that people still left with you. There are parts of my uncles that are still with me. They imparted that to me. They gave that to me. You know, and we look at these things and we learn through time to take it in stride. And we learn through time that we're going to be okay. Life is life. And it's not just happening to you. There's lots of people that have stresses that are worse. There's some people who have no stresses. Like, I don't know if billionaires stay up at night. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. They do look kind of ragged, some of them. But, you know, we look at it and it's like, you will always find something to be stressed about if you're predisposed to stress. And this is what we talk about on the channel all the time, the working of the mind. And I know, like this week, I have learned firsthand that my mind wants to go down that bad hill. It wants to go down the rabbit trail that says, oh, you know what? Your money's off today. And literally, like, we're dealing with a day hourly thing. Like, I literally get stressed at 9 a.m. because we don't have sales. And if I would have just, like, went to the beach, I would have came back and we would have had sales. But I'm sitting there flipping out like, oh my God, we're going under. Things happen, right? And all that stress was for nothing. And I've taught myself throughout time, and I was even able to get out of this recent one, but we realize that that's where our mind wants to go, right? It's like the people in the traffic that want to stop when they get to the hill. That's natural. That's what they do. I don't know why they do it, but that's what they do. I don't do it. I just go over the hill. But with stress, I do it. And so we look at it and it's like, well, if we train our minds that we don't need to take that. We don't have to stop at the top of the hill. We don't have to take that route. If your brain opens up a thought route, you don't have to take it. I could sit there and I could say, I'm a little stressed. Our sales are a little low. They were a little low last month and then they got better. I've been doing this for 20 years. We've been okay. I think we're going to be all right. It's not the end of the world. And you train yourself and you fight that thought by saying, I know what's real and I know what's true. Same thing with alcohol. It's going to say, you know what? You're stressed. Go drink. And you're going to say, you know what? Yeah, last time I drank and the few hundred times before that I drank, it didn't work out so well. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep going straight. I'm not going to take that route that says drink or find a way to cope with it or zone out or whatever. I'm just going to stay going because I know, just like when we talk about, I go to a party, I get anxious. 15 minutes later, the anxiety goes away. That happens whether I drink or not. If I go to the party and I drink, 15 minutes later, anxiety's gone because I get used to it. If I go to the party and I drink, 15 minutes later, the anxiety's gone. So it's going to happen either way. I might as well not do the things that make it worse. I might as well not ruminate on the stress because it's going to get better either way. It's gonna come and go. The seasons change, times change, things happen, ebbs and flows. Write it out. You're gonna be okay. And those are the things that we look at, and we just focus on that.
That's right. Lots of good comments here. Let's see. Let's just go to one of the most recent. Donna says, I know we can do this. Let's touch elbows vicariously. Thank you. Merci, God's soldier. And Ano Ano, I think you're talking about Ano Ano, has said, as long as I believe in the back of my mind that drinking is a viable option, I will relapse sooner or later. It has to be off the table, but I'm so afraid of these set of buttons that will make me relapse. You know, when I first got sober, I wasn't sure what those set of buttons that would make me relapse were, so I had to do everything possible. And I've kind of learned what they are, but maybe there's something that might make me relapse. You know, we talk about that before, where with pretty much everybody, there is something that might make us relapse. You know, no, yeah, for me, drinking is off of the table, and I know I can't drink. I used to think that I could have one, but why? Now I don't even want it, so it's much easier that just not even having any craving or want of alcohol ever. You know, it happens every once in a while. You know, you see a nice looking cold beer or something, and you're like, wow, it looks good. But really, it's just a fleeting thought for me. But for a true alcoholic, yeah, drinking has to be off the table. It has to remain off the table. But the disease is in me, so I have to do what I can every day, and I have to stay consistent, keep sobriety as a top priority, and that helps me a lot.
Absolutely. And I think also realizing what you can change and what you can control and what you can't. I
Yeah.
can't control what happens when I take the first drink, but I can control what happens if I don't take it. Like if I take the first drink, all bets are off because it's going to tweak my mind just enough to where all bets are off. But if I never take that first drink, that I can control. I could not go to the bar. I could not do the things that make me take that first drink, and I can purposely fight against that one. Now, if you have the first drink, you can't really fight. You're already tainted by alcohol. It's going to affect the working of your mind. It's going to send you down that loop. And that's why I don't drink today, because I look at it, and the number one reason is because I know yesterday when I was stressed out and all sideways, I know if I had a drink, it's going to automatically make my thoughts go the way I don't want them to go. It's automatic. You just pour a drink on it, boom, there you go. And I don't know if I'll be able to get out of that, because once you're in that cycle of thoughts, who knows what's going to happen? And once you have alcohol, what does alcohol want? It wants more alcohol. Alcohol is the thirstiest damn thing in the world. It wants more drink, more drink, more drink. And when we understand that, we say to ourselves, well, I'm not going to allow those thoughts to come in, and I'm going to stand at the guard of what I can stand at the guard of. Sure, I'm going to get stressed sometimes, but I know alcohol is going to make it worse. I know for a fact. You're going to say, oh, well, it's going to make it feel better for a moment. Yeah, how's that working out for you? There are other people in life that can have a drink after a long day, de-stress, and watch murder mysteries. Like, I don't know how drinking and murder mysteries help people de-stress, but hey, that's what they do. For me, I watch murder mysteries and I get all wound up and, looking out the window for people. But I drink and it doesn't help me. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at your track record. And when you say I want to drink because I'm stressed, look at your track record. Where did it end up last time? Last time I ended up in rehab. I lost a house I bought. I couldn't move. Ended up in a rental house. And I ended up in a mental institute. Like it's kind of like there was a comedy skit they were doing something. I forgot what it was. It was like some royal queen. And she was like, okay, everyone come to the royal queen and you can tell me what you want. Do you want tea and cake or death? And they're like, so my choice is tea and cake or death? Right? And it's like, who in their right mind is going to choose the opposite? Right? But that's what happens when you do alcohol. You're like, do I want tea and cake, which is like my thoughts are going to be okay? Or do I want death, which is where alcohol is going to take me? And when you look at it that way, like those are the options. I'm not choosing another drink to chill and relax and be, socially acceptable, for me, the alcoholic, I am choosing all those thoughts that took me to the mental institute. And I always say to myself, have another glass of insanity. Go ahead. You want to be insane? Have a glass of insanity. And we look at it and you go, well, Marcus, tons of people are able to drink. You don't understand. Maybe one day, maybe one day, maybe 5.5 years sober, I could go to the bar and have 6 drinks and get tipsy and be okay the next day. But I don't think so. And I don't want to chance it. It's not worth it. It's tea and cake or death. I know what it's going to bring. I'm going to choose the tea and cake and be like, hey, there we go. I'm not going to let my thoughts go down that rabbit hole because I know where they lead. And that's important. And when you're dealing with stress, do you want to make it worse? Pour some alcohol on it. Because I guarantee you're going to end up not doing anything. You're going to end up feeling miserable. And then on top of stress, you're going to feel guilty, which is a completely useless, time-wasting emotion. Guilt is about feeling better without being better, right? When I was hungover, I was always guilty. I'm like, I'm going to change. I'm going to be better next time. I really feel it. I feel real bad. I'd write everyone these notes about how I've changed. And then 4 hours later, I'd be drunk again. And then the next day, this letter, this is the time. You don't understand. And what I didn't realize is I was in the grips of alcohol, and alcohol was controlling the way that I thought. And I was feeling guilty. Therefore, I was feeling like I was making progress, which I wasn't. And it was a big cycle. Instead, we end the cycle and we say, you know what? I'm not going to feel this guilt because it's not going to do anything. I'm going to focus on what I can do, what I can change, what I can't do, and what I can't change. And I'm going to do what I can, but I can't do what I can't. When I'm on the highway, I can only drive one car at a time. You get in the car with my wife, she thinks she controls every car on the highway. She's like, that SOB should do this. This guy's on my butt. This guy should be over here. And I'm like, babe, you can only control one car at a time. Last I checked, you only got one gas pedal, a brake, and a steering wheel. There is no little steering wheel for the guy next to you. So what am I going to do? I'm going to focus on my car. I'm going to focus on where I'm going. And if a guy cuts me off or whatever, you go do what you're doing. I'm going to keep myself safe. And I'm going to drive safe. And I'm going to stay here and I'm going to do this. Everyone else can do what they're wanting to do, but I'm going to only control what I can control.
Yes. One thing you just touched on that was my biggest stress when I was still drinking was the stress of trying to quit drinking. And we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but really, towards the end of my drinking was not to drink away the stress of my everyday life. I whittled my life down to nothing. I had a home and a dog, and that's it. That's all I had. I got rid of the job, got rid of the wife, got rid of everything else. But I still had this huge stress because I knew I needed to quit drinking. I was 30 pounds heavier, or 50 pounds actually. I was way heavier, and I was so unhealthy, and I knew this stuff was killing me deep down. I knew, and I mean, I was like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, of course. But I'm going to quit tomorrow. As I walked to the liquor store. And then I was trying to figure out how to quit, and the fear of what I would go through with detoxing. That was one of my biggest hurdles to get over. I had this huge fear of quitting, and then what was going to happen, because every time I tried to quit, I couldn't, and I started shaking and feeling sick and just having terrible detox symptoms. And that was one of the worst stresses in my life. And I know there's quite a few people here right now that are struggling, and maybe that's a fear that you have as well, or maybe some of the people that are just watching, not commenting, or are just you can't get past that fear. And and then of course the fear of telling somebody. That was huge. Finally breaking down and saying to the girl that was in my life, I was like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I have to quit, and I can't. And that was hard. It was really hard. but I had to do it, and I did do it. And then I had a friend that was a doctor. They came over and they're like, "You got to go to the hospital, man. This stuff's dangerous." And that's very important. If you're struggling, you got to go to a doctor. Detox can kill you, and it almost killed me. So it's a very important thing to do. But that's what I finally did. And it was so stressful, and I had so much fear. But after I got through that first week or so of the detox, that week sucked. I'm not going to lie, it was horrible. But after that first week, I felt freedom. It was huge. I felt free from alcohol as far as it wasn't ruling me. I didn't have to have it. I still had lots of thoughts about it at that time, but my cravings were so much less, and it was huge. And because the cravings and all that and was less, and I was starting to just barely get a little bit healthier, but I was, able to walk a straight line finally. The stress level it got cut in half immediately. I still had these problems that I had caused through my drinking, but they were just on the back burner at that time. And maybe some of you are struggling like this. It's difficult. I know. I went through it. But that was the key, is going out and getting help. Coming to us here, talking to us now about what your problems are. It's great to see you guys here, or going to our Facebook group. I know somebody's talked about Instagram. I didn't read the whole thing there. I was watching Marcus. But anyways, that was a big stress for me, and maybe some of you can relate. But try to go out, get some help. That's the key. So, what do we got here? Lots of good comments.
Absolutely. And I think the key is just realizing that overall you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we tend to be the type of people, I know I do, where if I get sick, I sit home and I worry about what the hell's the matter with me. Like, I think it was 2 years ago, I woke up. You guys might remember this if you were watching the channel back then. And I had really, really bad back pain, really low, for every day when I woke up. I mean, it was like I couldn't move very well. And I'm sitting there stressed about it, and I'm looking up things, right? And I go to Google, and I'm like, lower back pain. And Google's like, yeah, you got lung problems, you got cancer, you got this, you got that. And I was like, I got all that. That's what I got. That's where the pain is, right there. That's what it is. I'm dying, and I was looking at this, and I'm freaking myself out in my mind. And I go to the doctor, and, he couldn't figure it out, which made it worse. And then I started looking it up, and I'm like, I have a soda every night before bed. I wonder if anyone else Googles soda back pain. And so I Googled it, and sure enough, that's all it was. I stopped drinking soda, back pain gone. I sit stressed about everything. It was a heartburn. Yeah, heartburn, and it went to the back. And as soon as I did that, it's gone. I haven't had it for a year and a half. And I was like as good as dead. I was like, oh man, we're done. I'm probably like stage 18 something. I don't know what it is, but I'm something. I looked it up on Google, and there was an ad, and there's this guy talking about this, and self-diagnosing yourself is good to a degree, but go to the doctor. They know what's going on, and use your common sense. Like, soda's not really that good for you anyway, so that was probably my problem. And for me, it caused acid reflux, which made my back hurt. And I can't tell you how many nights I stayed up worried about that. And I was freaked out, right? But we learned to cope. And maybe if it was something really bad, what if it was? Well, we go to the doctor and we deal with it. Life is what life is. Some things happen bad, some things happen good. It's happening to everyone, not just you. The problem is we look at life as this happens to me. I got this. The world's against me because I got this. No, it's not. This happens to everyone. There are people that are the greatest people in the world that have the worst things happen to them. There's people who are complete and utter crappy people that have great things happen to them. There's good people that have good things. There's bad people that have bad things, and bad people that have good things, and good people that have bad things. It's not you. What we need to learn to do, and what sobriety taught me, is to get the fuck over myself. Because I thought the whole world revolved around me. And you know what? It doesn't. The whole world revolves. Like, if I'm gone, and this is what I learned in rehab. I sat there in rehab, and I'm like, you guys don't understand. I run a business. I do this stuff. People count on me. 30 days, 20 days into rehab. I was like, why is the world not collapsing because I'm gone? Like, wait a minute, hold the phone. You telling me that no one really gives a shit? And because I was an alcoholic, my wife and my kids were actually a little bit happier when I was gone because I wasn't a drunken imbecile.
Yeah, that's probably
And
true.
here I am thinking the whole world's going to stop because I'm gone. Guess what? Newsflash. If you're gone, the world's not going to stop. Not going to stop. Even important people, right? There's leaders of countries who die all the time, and we get new leaders, right? And all kinds of things happen. And it's not just you. The world doesn't revolve around you. You're part of the world. And this is freeing because we look at it and it's like, now I get to be part of it. I don't have to control everything. I don't have to, be like the Hungry Hippo game where I'm trying to get. Everything's about me. Instead, I'm like, hey, it's all about part of it. There's plenty of marbles on the game for all the hippos to eat. We're going to be okay. And that's how life is. And we look at things that are stressful, and we look at all these problems. Like right now, there's all these ideas with government and elections and viruses and things like that. And, you take it in stride. Wash your hands, do what you can do, stay safe or whatever. And so we look at that, and we're like, okay, how can we deal with it? And you look at a lot of the problems, like how many people in the world are stressed about money? Like there are people starving to death because of money. And everyone says, well, what about this program that's going to feed people? Well, we don't have enough money. So let me get this straight. You are going to let people starve and possibly die because you don't have enough paper with pictures of people you think is important that you invented out of your ass. Like, money is a man-made, made-up thing. And I remember talking to my brother about this, and he got real mad because we disagree on things. And he's like, you have to have money because money makes the world go round. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, you can eat without money. Like, there you go. A tree comes up and gives me peaches, and it doesn't cost anything. The peach begets the peach. And he's like, yeah, but where are you going to get the seeds? And I'm like, from the fucking peach. It's in the peach. And he's like, but you got to have money to buy the seeds. And I'm like, you're not getting it. And this outlandish example of money being the issue is the same thing with what goes on in your life. Most of the problems you have are made by you. All the problems I have, if I have marriage problems, it's probably because I'm being too stubborn, or I'm being an ass, or I'm too self-centered. If I got money problems, it's because I spend more than I make. Pretty simple, right? And we look at this, and all this stuff is you got drinking problems, like with Terry and me. That was my biggest stressor. How do I stop drinking? It was man-made, because I'd sit there and I go, how the hell am I going to stop? You know what? The key to stopping drinking, I'm going to figure it out by having another drink. And it's like, on what planet does that make sense? You put the drink down, you say, I'm going to figure this drinking thing out without the drink. But the problem is we're sitting there wondering why we keep getting drunk while we keep pouring drinks into our mouth. And we're screwing up our own life. We're making stress on purpose by our own hand. And it's time to say, you know what? These things need to change. And just like a lot of the problems are not really about money because money's man-made, right? It's a totally made-up thing. That's it. A lot of the problems in your life are alcohol-made or made by your own doing. And you know what? You can unravel them. And it might seem like a giant elephant to eat, but you start one step at a time. You in debt? Call your creditor. Say, you know what? I got in debt. Got in trouble. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got $5. You know, I'm probably going to get a hamburger tomorrow with it because I got no food in the fridge, but what are you going to do? And he'll be like, well, I can't really do much with your $5. You know, we're going to do this or whatever. But if you call him and you work it out and you say, this is what I can do, you just go through and you start to iron each one away. And surprisingly, things start to work themselves out faster when you don't drink. All right.
Keep it an open mind. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, Derek, let's see here. Well, I wanted to say congrats on your, what was it, 1,600 something days? It's scrolled way up there, so I don't know. But congratulations, Derek. Veronica, 7 months. It's awesome to see you and everybody else. Great discussion that's happening on the side here. You know, Derek, you had said sorry for mentioning another channel, Alcohol Mastery. I have no problem with that. I think a person should do whatever it takes to get sober. Try everything. That's what I did. There weren't any, when I got sober, I didn't know of any alcohol sites on the internet that would help people, so I didn't look. But I did everything I possibly could. And I encourage anybody to do everything they possibly can. And the key with, just like what Marcus was kind of steering towards, is having that open mind. It's huge. You know, there's a bunch of people that are saying AA didn't work for them, and that's great. If it, well, it's not great that it didn't work for you, but it's okay to have that opinion. But I would encourage everybody to try everything, AA or a couple different channels. But it is important to be able to talk to another sober alcoholic. I think that's huge because, you know, we can relate to each other a lot. I mean, I will say about AA, you know, in the beginning of how it works, it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. When they first wrote it, it said never, but they changed it to rarely. And from what I've seen, and what I've seen people that have followed the program as thoroughly as they possibly can, they tend to make it. But not everybody does, you know, and maybe they didn't follow the program thoroughly, but whatever. Whatever. The important thing is that I see is people that tend to be successful in sobriety are not saying this stuff doesn't work, this is not how to do it. It's what does work, not looking at the negative, looking at the positive. What's working, and maybe what should I stay away from? But try not to get those negative thoughts about different programs or anything in life. Just trying to be positive, gratitude, you know, moving forward. And that's what's worked for me, and that's what I've seen work for people. And there you go. But lots of great comments here. Let's see.
Shane's got a good one. He's talking about, I'm a binge drinker and I feel so guilty when I relapse. Like the guilt of today is deep because he's on day number 1, which is the relapse day, right? So he probably drank last night, and then today he's like day number 1. I would like you to ask yourself how guilt is helping you, and did it help you in the past? Or is it just making you feel better about it? Because a lot of people will watch our talks and they'll listen to our stuff and they'll feel better. They're like, hey, I watched Marcus and Terry, I'm practically sober. And they can't stay sober, and the reason is because they aren't putting the stuff to heart and they're focusing on feeling better rather than being better. Us alcoholics are obsessed with feeling better. That's all we care about. I just want to feel better. I don't care if it is better. I just want to feel better. Like, I want to be in the ship that's going down, high as a kite, so that I don't care. Right? It doesn't matter if the ship's going down. Who cares, right? I'm here with my drinks and my whatever it is, and that's all I want. But the fact of the matter is when you're drinking, the ship is going down. And it's going to go down, and you're not always going to feel good. And you've probably figured out by now that alcohol doesn't make you feel as good as you thought it did. It's not really working anymore in the way that it used to. And now you have this added thing of I'm an alcoholic and I'm screwing up my life. And the key is what are you going to do? Not how you're going to feel. Because so often in our culture, we wait till we feel a certain way till we do stuff. Like, I'm going to go to the gym when I feel a little better. I'm going to go work out and we're going to get buff. And you never go to the gym because you never really feel that thing. I'm going to do this when I feel better, right? And one thing I learned is that procrastination, which is what you're doing if you keep relapsing, you're procrastinating on quitting drinking. Procrastination is about anger management. You're angry about something. Maybe you're angry about the fact that you're an alcoholic and you can't drink like normal people. Maybe you're angry about the fact that you can't deal with the alcohol problem, or that you can't have more alcohol, or that you can't just keep drinking and live your life. Or maybe you're angry about other things. But the fact of the matter is deal with that instead of dealing with the guilt, because the guilt's not getting you anywhere. So what is it I'm angry about? Am I pissed that I'm an alcoholic and I can't drink like normal people? Okay, does that really matter? No. Like, who really cares? Half the time I spend drinking alone anyway. So, like, what does it matter? And I think Terry and I can both say that life's better without drinking. Like, I'm not missing out on anything. I don't feel like I'm missing out. Like, even when I do see people that are drinking, I'm like, wow, that sucks. They left the concert early because she was throwing up. I got to see the whole concert. I got to experience everything. Or whatever it is, right? I didn't get in an argument at Thanksgiving because I drank and talked politics or whatever. I can sit back and not care. I can have the ability to say, well, I really don't care. You have the right to your vote. I have the right to mine. That's the way it is. But when you drink, everything gets all crazy, 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 crazy. Libby says my husband procrastinates and I never seen him drink. Yeah, it's probably about anger. Like for me, procrastination was about I deserve the fruit of my labor even when I don't labor. And I thought I just deserved everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm Marcus Campbell. Everyone should just throw money at me and give me everything I want, and I should not have to work. And then I realized, you're not that special. Nobody really cares. And that was the most freeing thing in my life, because I'm like, hey, that's cool. Now I just do what I do. I'm not owed anything. I'm not entitled to anything. It just is what it is.
Yep. Oh, Ty said, a few of the AA groups I attended here in North Carolina seemed like a pissing contest with their stories. Seemed that the next tried to bolster their story more than the last person. Oh yeah, I could relate to what you're saying, but it's the same thing. I look at a lot. I go to a bunch of some meetings with every week, and some of the same people. It's like the same person shares the same thing about. My neighbors are just driving me crazy, or they're talking about their story. I lived in a tool shed when I first got sober, and and people trying to embellish their I'm the worst alcoholic in the world, But I look at that as practicing life. We have to learn to be patient in life, and that's what I do. It's okay. We're all those meetings and in any other form of sobriety or things where people are trying to get sober, we're sick. There's people that are at different levels, and I just let them go, because hopefully it's helping them, and that's huge. And it teaches me, like I said, teaches me patience, how to listen, how to get along with people. That's part of what I didn't do when I was drinking. I just drank and drank and drank and didn't know how to deal with people, so I just didn't deal with them. Mm-hmm. And now I learn that on a daily basis, just going through life. Maybe it's in a meeting, or maybe it's just out there in the real world. Ty said, I found you all. My wife started attending Al-Anon. That helps a lot of people. My wife tried it. She did. It wasn't for her. Mm-hmm. What else we got?
I think we got, let's see.
Lots of great comments. I appreciate you guys all. Good conversations on the side here.
Also, if you guys do want to support the work we're doing and get lots of MP3s and PDFs and all kinds of stuff from our training, Terry is actually working on taking the training and putting it into a 30-day course, which will help you guys with all the stuff that we've learned over the last few years. Go over to talksober.com, click on support the show. For less than the cost of a beer a day, you could support the show, get a bunch of stuff. We're actually working on an app as well that we're coming out with shortly, and a book that I'm writing, which it was supposed to be done in January and February, but I'm a little behind, so we will get that shortly as well. All right. Awesome. Also, we do have a Facebook group. I don't know if I have the link. I don't know if this will pop up on the screen or not, but let me see if I can find the link for you guys. I think that's it. Yeah, there you go. You could join the Facebook group there.
You beat me.
That beat you. I know, my old eyes, I got a monitor way over here, and then 3 up here, and then I have the one I see here because I can't see those from here. So really, really crazy. Is there chat on the site? Oh, go ahead.
Shane and anybody else who's struggling right now, just hang in there and try that one day at a time. If you get that craving, try to take that 15 minutes. Keep talking to us. Talk to us over at the Facebook group.
Mm-hmm. And you could also go to talksober.com, click on support the show. Yep. And we have a members area there where you can get all kinds of resources. And we are going to start, as soon as we get enough people signed up, we're going to start weekly private calls so that you guys can actually share your personal stuff. And we can try to give you guys our input on that and help each other out to stay sober. That's going to be a pretty valuable resource because, being able to be accountable, I think is a big thing with sobriety, and it'll be kind of like an accountability group where we could go in. The calls will be done via Zoom, which you can watch on your phone, you can watch on your computer, your laptop, whatever you want. You can be private if you don't want to be known, or you can come in and you could type your questions, or you could talk your questions, all that stuff. And that's at talksober.com. Let me see if I can find where to send you guys. Let's see, talksober.com. So what you're going to do for that is hop over. Sorry, Terry, this is going to block your area here, but they'll see it. You go to talksober.com. You're going to click on support our work, and that's going to take you to this page. And then you'll just go over here for less than the price of a beer a day. You could just go ahead and put your info in there, and then you can join. It's a monthly thing. You can cancel whenever you want, and then you could join those calls. You could get all the resources Terry's been working on, and really good stuff. And you support the show, which right now we're running at a negative. I fund it out of my other business, but we're getting close to being able to do it. And one of our goals is to be able to spend a lot more time on it. I know Terry wants to do this full time. I'd like to do it at least part-time as well. So, pretty cool. I said poor Terry because the screen was in front of me. I would put it in front of me, but mine is the top layer, so I'd have to actually shut the camera off to put it in front of me. But, yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, cool. So I think that's about it for today. If you guys have any questions or anything, let us know. Reach out to us in the Facebook group. We also are on Instagram, although I don't check it very much, at TalkSober. But you could reach out to us those ways. Best way to get us is support the show. Hop in there, and we can give you some more time and help each other all stay sober, even when we get stressed out. So thanks again for being here. Make sure you give us a thumbs up if you're new. Subscribe. Click the bell. Stay sober one day at a time, and we'll see you next week, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Bye-bye.